And everybody still healthy?
Yeah, we're doing good, thanks.
Okay, we're recording now.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is 7 o'clock. Welcome to the 40th session of council on this Monday, December the 14th. Once again, we are meeting electronically, and so I will ask all members of council to indicate their presence and confirm that they are connected well. I'll start in the order of they appear on my screen. So starting with Councillor Buderick.
Yeah, here, and Bell 5 working well.
Thank you. Councillor Townend.
Yes, I'm here, present.
Thank you. Councillor Parks.
Here and present.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hagedorn.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Present and connected well.
Thank you. And Councillor Porter.
Present and unstable internet connection, but we'll muddle through.
Absolutely. As usual, if we have difficulties with the internet connection, if a councillor freezes, we will take a pause to try to reconnect. And as long as we have, unfortunately, if we lose someone completely, but we do maintain quorum, we will continue the meeting. To that end, I shall call the meeting to order. This evening, there was no closed session, so we're starting fresh now. There was no one in the open forum list at the beginning of the meeting. To the clerk, is there anyone currently waving a hand to indicate that they wish to speak in the open forum?
No, Your Worship, we do have a delegation later on in the agenda.
Yes, thank you. All right, and we move to public meetings. The first item 4.1, a public meeting regarding proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw. Council shall hear comments regarding the proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw. If no comments are received, then the bylaw will be considered for adoption under the consent agenda. We have the bylaw before us. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the procedures bylaw? If there's no one, is there any comments from council with regard to that? None? Okay. All right. And I don't think we need anything now. That bylaw will be considered in the agenda further down. Second item is 4.2, notice of public meeting for the interim development charges bylaw and background study. Take notice that the Council of Loyalist Township has scheduled a public meeting to consider a proposed interim development charges bylaw and background study in accordance with sections 10 and 12 of the Development Charges Act 1997, scheduled for Monday, January the 11th, 2021 at 6 p.m. It's just a notification of a public meeting. And item 4.3, also notice of a public meeting for the official plan comprehensive review and update. Take notice that the Council of Loyalist Township has scheduled a public meeting to consider a proposed comprehensive amendment update to Loyalist Township's official plan in accordance with section 1715 of the Planning Act on Tuesday, December the 15th, 2020 at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. That meeting will be a virtual webinar with the details showing on the agenda currently. I believe that's all we have for public meetings tonight. Right. Up next is the confirmation of the agenda. We have the agenda before us. Are there any edits or amendments to the agenda? And I'll go to Councillor Townend first.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to withdraw my motion, which is listed under 17.1.
Thank you. And the CAO had his hand up as well. Mr. Silver?
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to suggest withdrawing report number 12.3, which deals with ferry fees due to recent occurrences.
Withdrawing 12.3. Thank you. Are there others? Any other edits to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended then? Right. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Townend. Right. Any comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Right. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, item number 14.3, draft plan extension approval for Mill Creek. And I'm declaring a conflict of interest as I'm an adjoining property owner.
Thank you. And you will file the appropriate paperwork with the clerk or have done so already. Is there any other declarations? Seeing none, we move forward. There's no unfinished business. There's nothing under the office of the Chief Administrative Officer. We move to 11.1, 2021 miscellaneous fees and charges. We have a report before us from the clerk. Okay. And Chapman, do you have anything to add to this report at this time?
Sorry, Your Worship, did you do the minutes of the 39th session? Did I miss that?
Actually, no, I missed it somehow. Thank you very much. Right. Okay, coming back then, we'll hit 7.1 with my apologies for the people who are wanting the agenda to flow in sequence. We have the minutes of November the 23rd regular council. We have them before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions within those minutes? Anyone? No? Then can I have a motion to approve those minutes? And Councillor Porter, seconded by Councillor Gordon. Thank you. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Chapman, for catching that. And now we can move on to 11.1.
No, you still have section 8 for the delegations.
Wow, I'm really off my schedule tonight. Okay, section 8 for delegations. We have Mr. Martin Mack from Martin Mack Holdings wishing to make a presentation. Is he available in the audience tonight?
He is. I've just brought him in now and he should be able to. Oops. Just asked him to unmute.
Can you unmute, please, Mr. Mack? Thank you. Are you able to join us with camera or no?
Trying to. Can you hear me?
We can hear you quite well. Yes, welcome.
Wait, we're gonna start video. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
There we are.
How's that?
And
Better?
Thank you very much. And welcome, Mr. Mack. You have 10 minutes to make a presentation. Please
How much?
go ahead, and council will possibly have
How long
questions afterwards.
Sorry, how long did you say?
I believe it's 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Need about 7.
Okay.
So I'm requesting your consideration in waiving penalties and interest on the cleanup charges on my Caton Road property. Concord Homes has had a strained relationship with former staff of the building and planning department at Loyalist. This history goes back almost 20 years, wherein we've had serious issues that were routinely treated as aberration. Around 15 years ago, I had a meeting with Loyalist, with the CAO, CBO, and planner, as well as other senior staff to discuss recreate issues with the building department. As a result of the meeting, was that a certain building inspector was never again assigned to the Concord Homes project. Many times since then, I've sworn to never again build in Loyalist and have considered selling off the property I own just to not deal with the former staff of the building department. Excuse me. There have recently been significant changes in the building and planning department and with upper management. I've started to see a positive shift in how the building department works with the public. For the first time in 20 years, I'm feeling hopeful about the good working relationship with Loyalist Township. To that, the end, I recognize I need to pay the cleanup charges, which include the removal of my own property. I'm asking that Loyalist Township work with me and waive the penalty and interest that have been assessed. 2020 has been a difficult year, and while we've kept our head above water, our revenue is projected to be down 50% from 2019. Please note that I've paid the value of the assessed taxes in each of the calendar years, just not the cleanup charges and the related penalties. In making this request, I feel that it is prudent to review some of the history of my issues with the former members. In 2016, I took over a build for a client whose project had been abandoned. The inspector was the inspector who we historically had issues with. Problems started from the onset, and I asked the new, now former CBO to assign a new inspector. This was denied. Problems continued, and we only recently in 2020 received an occupancy permit for a project completed 3 years ago. In early 2017, due to these many issues, I brought a delegation in front of council. While I was gathering information to present to council, I was approached by several builders who built in Loyalist, asking that I address other issues. However, not one of them would join me for fear of repercussions. To my knowledge, the result of my delegation was that former staff of the building department, including the former CBO, were disciplined. Evidence of my issues were not without merit. Unfortunately, this resulted in backlash for me. In 2017, I was dealing with bylaw issues at the property on Caton Road. Again, there was disputed information. I requested a copy of the paperwork from previous bylaw order, which had been complied with and inspected and passed. None was provided. In June of 2017, hoping to work amicably with the township, I met with the former senior staff person and a building inspector on Caton Road site for about 2 hours. There was good discussion and the senior staff person identified the main issues, which were to demolish 2 buildings he deemed unsafe. He was to follow up by email with written summary of our meeting to confirm how to proceed. He did not do this. At the end of August, I proceeded to demolish 2 buildings to the satisfaction of senior staff person. Then mid-October, he followed up request a cleanup of other materials under dispute on the site. Example, a storage trailer. Again, we asked for a record of the previous cleanup order. The reason for the request was because under the order, we were told we could have a storage trailer. I was now being asked to dispose of the same. The township issued a order to comply, and I continued to await a copy of the previous cleanup order. In December, Loyalist subcontracted the cleanup to a third party without notifying me or providing any warning whatsoever, and sent me a bill for approximately $22,000, which included removal and disposal of materials not subject to the order. Also worth noting, it is that the cleanup was for an 80-acre rural residential property with old barns and buildings, like countless others, just like in Loyalist Township, that have not been unilaterally cleaned up like mine. I don't believe it is standard practice to act so hastily and without warning for such matters, and do believe that this was done as a punitive action for my delegation earlier on in the year and continuous relationship with former staff. I met with the former mayor on several occasions, seeking advice on how to resolve this issue. He advised me to hire a lawyer and to sue the township, as that would be the only way to effect change. Given the recent staffing changes, it is my hope to work with the current staff and do as much building in Loyalist as I can. I feel that the current staff has fostered a relationship of mutual trust and satisfaction. I look forward to a long and fruitful relationship. It is my hope that current staff can take the water under the bridge approach as I'm proposing. I'm appealing to council for a relief from the excessive penalties and interest on the $22,000 cleanup bill. Approximately $15,000 in penalties and interest has been assessed in only 3 years. My hope is that we can work together with Loyalist Township in helping the community become stronger through the remainder of this pandemic and bring more people to live in our community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mack. I appreciate your words. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the information provided for us today? And I'll go to Councillor Buderick.
So just to be clear, you have the spot on Caton Road. Do you have any other locations in Loyalist Township that you currently own that you're thinking of building on?
Yeah, I own, so there's actually 3 properties on Caton Road.
Okay.
I also own one in the village of Odessa. We also have several in Amherst as well.
Any other questions for this delegate? Councillor Porter.
Through you, your worship, to Mr. Mack. You said the total bill is $22,000. What was the original charge for the cleanup?
The original charge was $22,000. It's $22,000 plus $15,000 in interest and penalties.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
actually 37 and change.
All right. Thank you.
And just for clarity, you're agreeing to pay the 22. You're asking for the council's relief on the 15.
Yes, exactly. I'll cut you a check tomorrow for the 22.
That was what I understood. Thank you. Other members of council with questions? There are nothing further. I'll say thank you very much, Mr. Mack, for presenting to us today. I will ask the clerk to move you back into the audience, and I'll look to council for a motion at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, you've heard the delegation, right? Do you have a motion? I'll go with Councillor Budrick.
Motion to accept the delegation and have him still pay the 22,000 in fees, but waive the penalties and interest. He is someone I do know that lives in the township, grew up in the township, still wants to contribute to the township. And I'd like to see us move forward to try and work with people that want to be a part of our township.
And I'll take that as a motion and your first comment on it. Do I have a seconder for that? I'll go with Councillor Porter. And since the mover's already said his piece, I'll go to the seconder for comment.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult year, and that was a very challenging issue that Mr. Mack did go through. I'm seconding and supporting the motion to waive the penalties and interest, only because it was a difficult situation for all parties concerned, and not because the municipality is taking any responsibility for any of the allegations being made. And I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Other comments? I'll go with the deputy first.
Thank you, through you. I'm not going to support the motion as it stands. I would rather get a staff report first so that we have all the information, all the background, and see both sides of it, and then make a fully informed decision. So I'm not going to support it as it stands.
Thank you. Other hands? Councillor Townend, I think I saw yours.
The deputy mayor stole my thunder.
Any other comments? Councillor Gordon.
I'm sorry, when would that report be available?
That report is not actually in a motion right now. I can see the deputy's point, but the motion at hand is to make a decision on the waiving of fees within this motion. If this fails, then the deputy might be able to put forward a motion to ask for a report and seek the ramifications.
Okay.
Any other comments? Councillor Porter?
The township is not in the business of raising funds through penalties and interest. The proponent is quite willing to pay the original costs. And so the municipality is not out any funds whatsoever if those monies are now paid in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Actually, I'll have a question for staff before we go back to the mover. I'm not sure to whom to direct this, likely the director, possibly the CIO. When it comes to waiving fees, we have policies around fees. The first half of the question is, do we have a policy with regard to staff being able to adjust, waive fees, etc., or is that something that is framed within our policies? And secondly, what would the ramifications of such a decision be?
Yes, Your Worship, we do have a policy about staff waiving fees. This would be beyond our approval authority, $15,000. The township did pay the cleanup fee at the time. So that is money that the township spent in 2019.
Thank you. All right. I'll come back to the mover for final comment.
Yes, this is a situation, I've been involved with this for some time. I've had multiple meetings to get a better understanding with the resident to understand the trials and tribulations and ups and downs he's gone through over the years with with dealing with the township. And it's unfortunate. I know that some of the other counselors are just seeing this for the first time on the agenda. But I know with the time I have put in, I'm very, very confident in my opinion and the motion moving forward, in the beliefs that I do have, that it is the right thing to do.
Thank you. That was final words, so I will call the question. All those in favor? 4, I count 4. Opposed? And motion is carried. And thank you. Are there any other delegations to the clerk? None?
No, your
Thank
worship.
you. Then we shall move forward. Right. Now we can get to where I thought we were before, which is item 11.1, the 2021 miscellaneous fees and charges. We have the report. And to the director and clerk, do we have any, oh, sorry, wrong department. To the director and treasurer, do we have any comments to add to this at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a brief update. The report itself, as you'll see, is not suggesting a lot of changes at this point. But one of the changes is the ferry fee. And I think when the report was written, some of the information around the proposed ferry change was going to be covered in the other report, which has been withdrawn. So just at a high level, the proposal was to increase that fee from 9 to 10 to partly to make it to reduce the amount of cash handling when we go back to collecting fares again at the ferry. So just to go from 9 to 10 would just be easier, be less change, easier to pay, with large bills. So that was part of the rationale behind that. So that change has been reflected in this draft proposal.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the miscellaneous fees proposal? Deputy, go ahead.
So with the other ferry report being removed from the agenda, are we still looking at if this includes that increase? If this is approved as it stands, then that increase would automatically be included. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. At this point, it's part of the recommendation.
Any other questions with regard to this report? Seeing none, I look for a motion. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Move to receive the report and adopt the recommendation.
Unfortunately, you broke up a little, Councillor Porter. Maybe just a nod if your motion is to receive the report and adopt the recommendations as presented.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Sorry. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon. Mover, comments?
No, I'm happy to see that there is not a great deal of fee increases being proposed.
Thank you. Seconder? Nothing? Anyone else? None? And back to mover? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving to Community and Customer Services Department, item 12.1, the ICIP COVID Resilience Stream Grant Funding Opportunity. We have a report from the director. And Ms. McFarland, is there anything you'd like to add to this report at this time?
Nothing at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the report and its content? Anyone? No? Okay, can I get a motion? I'll go with Councillor Parks, seconded by Councillor Townend. Right. Councillor Parks, any comments? No? Councillor Townend? Anyone else? Okay. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we move to 12.2. At this point, I'm trusting if I misread the agenda again, someone will flag it to me. So 12.2, we have a report with regard to accessible transit. And again, we have the director here. Is there anything to add to this report at this time?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions with regards to it? Anyone? No? We have a recommendation that this information be received. Oh, Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
Have a motion when you're ready, sir.
Okay. And go ahead.
Motion that we we receive this for information. One slight change, two slight changes to the report. One be that it's for all of Loyalist Township because it's accessible taxis, not an accessible bus, that it actually serve all the whole municipality. And that I know I was involved in this and being on the tax commission and doing some of the legwork on this. I'd also like to see if we can find out some way somehow that we can work out a deal, have staff work out a deal so that we can figure out how we can pay Amy's Taxi to get this ball rolling, because it's something I know we've been working on as a municipality for some time, and I'd really like to see it get moved forward.
Okay, I'm going to have to get some clarity.
Okay.
The motion is to receive for information.
Yes.
With an edit to indicate the accessible service would be applied to the entire township.
Instead of in here says the purpose is for the residents of Amherstview, but when I did this, because it's not an accessible bus, we can actually service our whole municipality. And the system that I know they've got set up, because like I said, I've been talking to the brokers, the owners and things like that of these companies, that we can service the whole municipality. And I know there's one thing that's still one hurdle we have to do, and we have to figure out is how to pay them. But yeah, sorry, I ramble.
Understood. I just needed that clarity. The second half is more direction for future. And
yes,
to leave the motion or the report is for the to receive for information where we are now.
Yes.
If you wish to make a kind of a secondary motion with direction to proceed, I'd suggest that become a secondary motion then. Okay.
I like that idea, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion to receive with a minor edit with regard to the geography. Is staff clear on the edit? Yes. Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? And Councillor Parks, thank you. Mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think I did. I rambled. So being on the tax committee, this is something that I know that staff have been working on for a while and have done a great job. And I've also done some of the talking to the owners and brokers and things like that. It's something that I know is good to go forward. I know with the system they set up, there will be a need to figure out how we pay the companies that are going to provide this service. And I mean, I know staff feel very confident in staff's ability to work that part out. And like I said, I'd like to service the whole municipality, not just a portion of it, but by making that change in the geography.
Thank you. Second or comment?
I just wanted to thank Councillor Buderick for bringing that forward and noting that it's for the whole township as a whole. I think that's a great opportunity for other residents also.
Absolutely. Thank you. Other comments? Deputy, go ahead.
Just a question for clarification. Are you giving direction for it only to include all of the township, or in negotiations to determine the additional costs for the entire township above where Route 10 already services?
I'll clarify that. The motion on the floor is for receive the report for information, but with an amendment to include the entire township as the work goes forward. Any further motion that Councillor Buderick might be putting forward in a moment about the next steps would be with regard to the negotiations, etc. Does that
Okay.
help?
No, it doesn't. So the motion is to receive for information for the whole township.
Yes.
Mine read it geographically, yes.
So what's for the whole township? Are we directing staff to negotiate for the entire township? Or I'm just not sure what we're looking at for the entire township. Are we giving direction that is where we want accessible? We only want them to negotiate for the entire township for all accessible transit? Or is it just for that to be included in the negotiations?
For that to be
Councillor Bitter.
included, sorry, through you, sir, to the deputy mayor. When I spoke with them on this, it would be instead of a bus, it would be a broker that has accessible vans that would be able to drive to a resident's address, pick them up, and take them, say, for example, someone in a wheelchair to a doctor's appointment or something like that, that they don't have the ability to take a bus. So it technically wouldn't, Route 10 on the bus is part of Amherst, and that's where we tried to get the accessible bus. That didn't happen. We went to a different route, and Township, like I said, has done all that work already. It's just, yeah, some stuff I guess I could talk to the director offline to finish this off, I guess, but yes.
And
Sorry.
just with regard to this specific motion, I'll actually turn to the director. Ms. McFarland, are you clear on the motion that we have in front of us? Can you give your interpretation?
From my understanding, we're receiving for information to include the whole municipality, not just Route 10, which is our legal requirement for AODA, to meet AODA, but the information that we are providing, Councillor Boudreau would like us to include all of the municipality.
And any further direction would come from a subsequent motion.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And does that provide clarity to the deputy?
Well, not really. No, to be honest, I understand the Route 10. And that's where we're required to be compliant because it's already a serviced route and a serviced area. I guess what I'm not sure of, to just say and the entire township, are we automatically just doing the entire township, or are we still addressing Route 10 with the caveat that if it goes to the entire township, this is the additional cost?
I understand that the question, and I honestly don't have clarity on that. And this is the motion that we have before us.
In that case, then, since that's not clear to me, it may be to everybody else, but it's not to me. I'm not going to support it simply because I agree with moving forward to be compliant on Route 10. There's also another, as is mentioned in here, the county is doing a full review of the entire county and the possibilities there. And a part of the discussion that was had when I was interviewed by the consultant was compliance, what that would entail for compliance throughout the township and the potential. So I agree with meeting compliance with Route 10, and I agree with looking at the entire township. I just, without knowing what the direction is here, I don't want to commit the township to automatically doing the whole township before we have any values and the full implications to the township.
Thank you. Do I have other members of council wishing to speak on this? Councillor Porter.
Yes, I'm going to support the motion as it stands because my understanding of it is that the accessible transit, not looking at and investigating and implementing some sort of accessible transit should not just be limited to Amherstview. It should be investigated for the whole township. And if there's decisions to be made moving forward, and if there is resolution or solution that can accommodate all of the municipality at an acceptable cost, then that's what should be looked at, not narrowing our scope just to Amherst. And that's written in the purpose of the report. So that's just why I think Councillor Budarick wanted to expand the purpose of the report and make it clear that if there is a feasible and solution, that it be looked at for the whole municipality and not just Amherst.
Other comments? And Councillor Budarick, if I may offer a potential, I'll say, solution to move forward. If you wish, and obviously you and the mover could revise your motion to receive this report, which is mostly a history report of what has transpired already, and then in your second motion, potentially offer the direction of expanding the negotiations and the discussions toward the full township. Go ahead, Councillor Budarick.
Could I consider that a friendly amendment and take it?
And you can offer it as a friendly amendment. Does your seconder accept that?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is back to the recommendation, which is to receive for information.
Yes.
And now that we're back to that, I will ask council, do you have comment? And mover, final comment?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried to receive for information. Councillor Budarick, did you wish to make a follow-up motion?
I would like to make a follow-up motion up, sir, to see if we could look into expanding the geography to see what it would encompass to service the whole municipality.
And so moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. And would you like to speak to it?
I think I've said enough already. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Parks? Anyone else? Deputy, go ahead.
I just want to say that I'll support this one because the way I interpret this one is we're looking at including it. We're identifying Route 10 as the requirement, but we want to negotiate towards the entire township. And so that I'll support.
Thank you, sir.
And I see the manager of Public Works who is heading this has come on screen. Is there a requirement for comment? Mr. Scott?
I was just going to indicate that we have included some money in the 2021 budget request for accessible transit within the Amherst Youth Service area. We can certainly, as part of the budget deliberations, look at what that cost would be for expanding the service into the rural areas. But as the director had mentioned earlier, there is no legal requirement at this time to do so or to subsidize at $325 for the rural area. I do understand the need that's out there. We're trying to address the legal requirements in the short term, while we're also looking at the idea of the rural transit system. Should the rural transit system come on board for general transit, then we would definitely have an option under AODA to provide a similar service for accessibility.
With this motion, it provides the direction to staff to, if it's passed, provides the direction to staff to continue looking to find ways to expand to the greater township. And I think have I already asked the mover for final comment? No?
None.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving forward to item 12.3, which is 12.3 was removed from the agenda. And we go to 13.1, the appointment of municipal law enforcement officers. And we have a report from the clerk. And Ms. Chapman, did you have any further comments to make to this at this time?
Nothing, Your Worship, unless there's questions.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions with regard to the content of the report? Seeing none, I look for a mover. And I'll go with the deputy. And seconded by Councillor Townend. Thank you. And you're moving the recommendation, deputy? Yeah. Would you like to speak to it? No. Would the seconder like to speak to it? Anyone else? And then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 14.1. Economic Growth and Development Community Services Department. We have a building bylaw amendment. We have a report, and we do have the director here. Ms. Merritt, do you have anything to add to this report at this time?
No, Your Worship, nothing to add, but Mr. Parkinson, the Chief Building Official is here in case there's any additional questions. He'll be able to answer.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions with regard to the report? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the report. It was well done in the respect that it highlighted all the questions and the information that was brought forward at the last meeting. So I do appreciate that very much. But there was a question that was raised to me earlier today in regards to gross floor area. And I know in your report you did address that. But they just wanted to be clarification that if a floor is above grade and unfinished, it will not be included in the calculation for building permit fee. I'm interpreting it as no, it would not be calculated, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Mr. Parkinson, are you available to comment?
Yes, my camera isn't working for some reason, which is to your benefit.
We recognize your voice.
Unfinished floor space above grade, it has always been calculated in the fees. So we would continue to calculate unfinished floor space above grade in the fees. Unfinished space below grade would not be calculated in the fees. That was the question I had been asked quite often. Would we calculate unfinished space below grade? And the answer is no, we would not.
Councillor Porter?
Okay, just to follow that line of thinking then, in the bylaw, you've defined gross floor area means the total finished area of all floors above and below grade. So
Okay.
if it's not finished, then it's not included in the gross floor area, and it would then follow through not to be used in the calculation for permit fees. The reason for the request, and just let me clarify, the reason for the question, let me clarify on that, is that some of the builders build a basement that is slightly above grade. It's still considered a basement, but it is above grade. So, you know, the new style, I think we saw them over at Collins Bay at one time by somebody, maybe Phoenix Homes or something, did a lot of those where the basement was above grade. So that's where the question's coming from. It's a basement, it's unfinished, but it is above grade. So I just want that clarified if you wouldn't mind, please.
Mr. Parkinson?
Yeah, where a basement is partially below grade, we've usually interpreted that as a below grade, so that any unfinished area in that is not calculated.
Okay, Councillor Porter? Okay. Anyone else with questions with regard to this? Seeing none, I look for a motion. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
I'll move to receive and adopt.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Budrich? Thank you. Mover comment?
Just that a lot of work has been done on this, and a lot of questions have been asked and a lot of input has been given. And so the amount of work and time and energy that's been spent on this is very much appreciated. And addressing everybody's concerns and addressing them in written format and including them in the report has been extremely helpful.
Thank you. Seconder comment?
Just appreciate the work the staff did on this report. a lot of work to it, and they did a fantastic job.
Thank you. Any other comments? None? Back to mover? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to item 14.2. It's selection of the consultant for the secondary plan. Again, we have a report before us. Okay. Ms. Merritt, do you have any comments to add to it at this time?
No, your worship.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Winnicky is coming on board if there are any detailed questions. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the report before us? And taking none, I have one, right? And I think it's through to Mr. Winnicky. Just, I believe I know the answer, but can you clarify what the anticipated completion date or estimate for the secondary plan would be?
Currently, Mr. Mayor, the RFP calls for it to all be wrapped up by December of 2021. However, we are a few weeks behind where we wanted to be in terms of approving this contract, so that may slip a little bit into 2022.
Thank you. I'll come back to council for any final questions. Now I'll look for a motion. Deputy?
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Buderick. Mover, any comments?
Just that I'm very pleased to see it moving ahead.
Seconder? Nod. Anyone else? And actually pleased and excited to see this moving ahead. This is going to be quite influential in the next, I'll say, couple of decades anyway for the township. Right. With that, back to mover. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Excuse me. Going to item 14.3, draft plan approval extension for Mill Creek Living Phase 2. And Councillor Porter has indicated her declaration on this one. And we have a report before us. And is there anything to add to the report at this time?
Nothing to add, your worship.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regards to it? No? Then I'll seek a motion. Councillor Townend? Move to receive and adopt?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Seconded by Councillor Buderick. Thank you. Right. Any comments, Councillor Townend?
No, sir.
Councillor Buderick? Anyone else have comments? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to item 14.4, the appointment of the Committee of Adjustment. Again, we have a report with a recommendation. Right. Are there any comments on it, Director?
No, your worship.
Council, do we have any questions with regard to it? Then I'll seek a motion. Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Porter. Right. Any comments? Nowhere. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 14.5, bath water treatment and sewage treatment roof replacements, pre-budget approval. And to the director, anything to add?
Nothing to add, your worship.
Thank you. Council, questions with regards to this? None? Then I look for a motion. Anybody want? Councillor Townend? Receive it.
Move to receive and adopt, your worship.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks? And mover comment? Seconder comment? Anyone else have comment? None? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We go to 14.6. Certainly have a lot in your agenda tonight, Ms. Merritt. Right. We have the report before us with regard to the extension of capacity allocation for 315 Main Street. Right. Does the director have anything to add?
No, your worship.
Thank you. Right. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the report and the recommendations? Seeing none, can I get a mover, please? Councillor Porter, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Buderick. Councillor Porter, any comments?
No.
Councillor Buderick, any comments? Anyone else? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. 14.7, on-site and excess soil management. We have a report before us. And Ms. Merritt, any further comment to the report?
No, your worship.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Deputy, go ahead.
Just a question. The way I read it, any producer of excess soil, if the soil is used within their property, that's still acceptable. And what I'm getting at is, say for the township, if we were doing ditch clean out or we were doing some work within the right of way, if that material is used in the vicinity, like for slope flattening or something, is that still acceptable, or do we have to go back and do all the testing just to basically use the surplus material within our right of way?
To you, your worship, I understand that there is an exemption quantity that is allowed. There are some exemptions as far as what work you're allowed to do, and if you're not moving it off site. We don't have all the details at this point. This is to be worked into the next phase of getting that regulation or that policy approved. So we're still battling with what the rules are, but yes, if it's within a certain quantity, and depending on the type of work that you're doing, there's not necessarily a requirement to test.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? It took me a couple of reads to figure out that if one property owner with multiple properties isn't able to transfer soil from one property to another property just automatically. Took me a couple of reads on that one. Anyway, sorry, do we have a mover? Not yet. Would someone like to move the recommendation or something else? And deputy?
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by? And Councillor Parks? And mover comment?
Just that I'm glad that the portion that I mentioned there previously, I'm glad to see that that's still in the works. I think that that's the way to produce good engineering and be able to do calculations to utilize the material that's produced on a property to the benefit of the property. So, and it's also a way to keep the testing and the expenditures at a reasonable amount as well. So I'm glad to see that that's still moving forward.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Parks? Comment?
Sorry, I would just echo the sentiments of the deputy.
And thank you. Anyone else? If none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 14.8, the status of water and sewage uncommitted reserve capacity. We have a report and a couple of recommendations. To the director.
I do have a small comment to make here. It's an important distinction, but in the executive summary of the report, we made a comment with regards to the prepaid capacity for the Bath water and Bath sewage system that is controlled by Caitlin Corporation. It's actually two separate corporations, Caitlin Corporation and Loyalist Meadows Limited. the main players are similar, but they had requested that we keep their allocation separate. So Caitlin and Loyalist Meadows as two separate ones. So it's a little bit different than what we wrote in the report. I mean, the end result's still the same. They have the same amount combined.
Understood. Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarity. And Council, do we have any questions with regards to this? Anyone? And no? Then I'll look for a mover. And I'll go with Councillor Townend, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any comments? None? Anyone else? I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Director. We move to item 15.1. Emergency shelter for Amherst Island. And we have a report from the chief. And does the chief have anything to add to this report at this time? There you go.
Mr. Mayor, no, nothing at this time.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions with regards to this report? Seeing none, I look for a mover. And Councillor Townend.
I move to defer the report.
A motion to defer. Right. To a specific timeline?
No specific timeline, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have a motion to defer. Do I have a seconder for the motion to defer? Councillor Porter.
Question?
And question?
Mm-hmm.
And
do you need to give a reason for deferral?
And we'll come back to his rationale in just a moment. I need a seconder before I can put.
I'll second it. Sorry, I'll second
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, back to Councillor Townend.
Yes, Your Worship. I appreciate the chief's work in the drafting of this report. I would just like the opportunity to be able to consult further with the chief about what potential emergency preparedness could be arranged on Amherst Island. I think for something like this, it's important to get it right. And I think if council is amenable, just a matter of having some more time to consult on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Townend. Seconder comment? The motion to defer, it shouldn't have discussion, but go ahead. Are you still seconding?
Yeah, I'm still seconding, and I support any kind of deferral that where more information or more discussion or more research is needed by any member of council. We have very limited time to deal with these reports when they come out, as we all know, a couple of days, 2-3 days. And I respect, members' request to defer it in order to give them time to either digest it or to gather additional information.
Thank you. And with that, it is a motion for deferral. I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Motion is deferred. Report is deferred. And we move to communications for consideration. We have 16.1 request from the Lions Club. And what would we like to do with this one, folks? Somebody, Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and support with a $500 donation.
So moved for $500. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Porter, thank you. Mover comment?
I was going to go higher in the dollar value, but I wanted it to go through. It's just this year has been very hard on everyone, and they can't. I mean, I've been encouraging people to support any of these, anything like this, any of the food hampers or anything, just because you can't collect food like you used to, which means it's a huge expense to these organizations. What they used to be able to get in kind or in product, now they're actually spending cash And at some point, if they aren't able to raise funds, the community is going to be in a bigger problem than what we are now. So supporting any of these, I think, is really big right now.
Absolutely. Seconder comment?
Yeah, no comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have comment on this? And seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the notice of motion from Councillor Townend was withdrawn at the beginning of the agenda. Okay. And so I must now turn to council and say, are there any other notices of motion or direct motion? Okay. I'll go to Councillor Townend.
One down, one up. I do have a direct motion, Your Worship, if you're prepared to rule on it.
And I need to hear it first. Go for
right.
it. So hang on a second to the clerk.
I do have it on the screen if you'd like me to put it up while
that would be appreciated. That would be appreciated.
Thank you. Go ahead, Madam Clerk. And go ahead, Councillor Townend, if you wanted to read it out.
Yep. Whereas Loyalist Township is responsible for the operation of the Amherst Island Ferry Service, and whereas Loyalist Township's portion of the operational cost of the ferry service is fully recovered from the collection of user fares, and whereas it is expected that the collection of fares will resume in January 2021, be it resolved that staff select and prepare the implementation of a contactless pay system at the earliest possible convenience. Be it further resolved that a report be brought to the February 8th, 2021 meeting of council outlining progress to that end.
And you so move that, Councillor Townend?
Yes, sir.
And recognizing the timeliness, this is our last meeting prior to January. So I will accept this as a direct motion. Okay. Do I have a seconder for it? Councillor Buderick. Mover, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, sir. I just think it's important for council to give staff a little more breathing room in finding a contactless solution, which has been anticipated for these months, and also to make it clear through a resolution that council is committed to the return of ferry fees as well.
Thank you. Seconder comment?
With technology these days, I see that it's a great idea moving forward, and it will also possibly bring us closer to actually collecting fees again, as it makes it a safer transaction for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And any other comments from council? Seeing none, I will go to the director and Ms. McFarland. Are you clear on the direction provided?
Sorry. Yes, Your Worship, it's clear.
Thank you very much. Okay, coming back to council, if there were no further comments, I'll go back to mover for final. Nothing. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion or direct motion? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. For the purpose of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are repetitive or routine in nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for a separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Okay. Is there anything any member of council wishes to segregate from the consent agenda right now? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, I would like to remove, to separate 21.15 from the consent agenda.
2115. Is there anything else that anyone wishes to separate from the consent agenda? None? Okay. Then I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda without that item. Deputy, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Gordon. Okay. Any comments, Deputy? Go ahead.
Yes, just one. I didn't separate it because I'm in agreement with it. I just wanted to draw attention to it that 20.3, we once again got 100% on compliance for our water. And under highlights, the inspection rating was 100%. And also there were no actions or recommendations or best practice issues identified. So not only did we ace it, but they couldn't come up with even any suggestions. So well done to staff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other comments with regard to the content of the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 2115. We have a report, letter from Southwest Middlesex. And Councillor Townend, do you want to do something different with this?
Yes, Your Worship, I would like to receive, motion to receive and support. And if I get a seconder, I can obviously speak to that end.
Move to receive and support, seconded by Councillor Porter. Go ahead, Councillor Townend.
Yes, I mean, as a municipality with a CN rail line that runs through our boundaries, Loyalist does experience currently similar challenges with respect to fulfilling its role as an implementer of the Drainage Act. So the proposition in the contained resolution for the province to coordinate with the Federal Minister of Transportation is a good one, in my opinion, as it seeks to restore the historical and effective coordination between municipalities and the national railways on these important issues.
Thank you. Seconder?
No.
Okay. Anyone else have comment on it? So the motion is to receive and support. Right. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Coming forward, we are at communication for members' privilege. Okay. Is there anything under members' privilege for any member of council? Councillor Parks.
I just wanted to pass on our condolences to the recent passing of Dave Hinton from Loyalist Cove Marina. His death was unexpected and will be a great loss for the community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else under members' privilege? And I will go to the CAO.
I'm not a member.
Not quite member, but
I'm not a member, but let everyone else speak first. I just wanted to thank council for their donation towards our Advent calendar prizes for the frontline employees this holiday season. We've combined your donation to be the big December 24th prize. So everyone's looking forward to that, the frontline employees. So thank you very much. It certainly helps to improve morale and engagement for our employees, and we just like to wish all of our council members a very safe, happy, and healthy holiday season.
thank you, Mr. Silver. Anything else under members' privilege? No? Excuse me. Moving forward, we're looking at upcoming meeting dates. On the schedule, of course, is tomorrow's special council meeting with regard to the official plan at 6 p.m. On the 17th, there is a Renewable Energy Vibrancy Fund Committee meeting. On January 4th, Committee of Adjustment. January 11th, regular council. And then the 25th, 28th, and 1st would be Committee of the Whole for the purpose of budget. Right. And I see a note for discussion and deliberation from council, having a special council meeting on January the 25th with regard to the interim development charges. Right. Any comments with regard to that proposed date? I see no comment. Oh, Councillor Porter?
That's the same date being proposed as the committee of the whole budget, is it not? So does that mean we'd have 2 meetings in the one evening, or?
I'll turn to the clerk. Go ahead.
Through your worship, so the bylaw would have to be by special counsel. So yes, it would be following. And what we will do is set it up similar to the meeting tomorrow, that it'll be one meeting that will be committee of the whole, and then it just rolls over to special counsel rather than having different Zoom logins, so that it'll be a kind of a continuation meeting.
And that is following the public meeting that is scheduled for January the 11th to have public input to that, is it not?
That I'm not sure, your worship.
I believe at the beginning we announced that. Yes, Monday, January 11th, we're having a public meeting with regard to the interim development charges. And so the proposal is that we would have a special council meeting on the 25th to presumably pass the bylaw if there's nothing significant changed from the public meeting.
Yes, your worship.
So that would be a fairly brief one-item meeting that we could have on the same evening as the committee of the whole budget. Yes. Right. Assuming council approves that.
Yes.
And Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, usually budget meetings are long and very challenging, to say the least, and it's one of the first budget meetings, so I presume it's going to be long, challenging, and very tiring. I'm not sure why we would include another meeting on top of that, because it may be brief, but it may not be brief, right? We don't know that, and there could be a lot of discussion in regards to the development charges subsequent to the public meeting on it. So if it's not a rush, I don't see why we can't put it over into February.
And I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so the proposal that council will receive will be to extend the current development charge bylaw for several months till, I believe, May or June, I think, to give us additional time just due to the COVID. We should have had it done sooner, but this didn't get completed. So it'll be extending the current provisions longer.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, the intention would be that being simply an extension and no changes, that it should be a fairly brief meeting. I'm wondering if we should have it at the beginning, to have the special meeting of council first and then flow into the committee of the whole budget meeting. And if that makes sense, could I get a motion to approve that adjustment to the schedule? Councillor Porter, seconded by Councillor Townend. Any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. So we will have the interim development charges bylaw on the 25th at 6 o'clock, and then roll into the committee of the whole budget immediately thereafter. Okay. Anything else to the clerk? Anything else under meetings that I need to pay attention to here?
Through your worship, the only thing for the December 17th renewable energy, so it will not be live streamed, but it will be recorded and put onto the website within a week, although with it over Christmas, we'll get it up as soon as we can.
Understood. Thank you. And if there's nothing else, we move to the confirmatory bylaw. And can I get a motion? Deputy, seconded by Councillor Porter. And call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And can I get a motion for adjournment? Councillor Townend, seconded by Councillor Buderick. Okay. I'm not going to call the question quite yet because I want to take the opportunity before we're adjourned to wish all of you the very best of the holidays to our staff who've done such an amazing job this year, and to council who've done an amazing job in keeping everything together this year and keeping this township on track. I wish you nothing but the best, the healthiest and happiest of holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. And with that, and that abuse of the chair, I will call the question on the motion for adjournment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned, folks.